It was the kind of moment that instantly sends a ripple of panic through a stadium and then across the internet. For months, Taylor Swift had looked almost untouchable on the Eras Tour, powering through show after show with the kind of stamina that made the whole production feel larger than life. Night after night, city after city, she had stepped onto stage and delivered what many fans see as one of the most demanding concert performances in modern pop music. So when her voice appeared to falter during her Singapore show, it did not feel like a small slip to the people watching. It felt like a warning sign. In the middle of performing Delicate, Swift coughed, cleared her throat, and seemed to momentarily struggle to keep her voice steady. It lasted only a moment, but for fans who have spent the last year watching her perform at an almost superhuman level, that brief interruption felt deeply unsettling. Social media lit up immediately, with fans posting messages of concern, saying they could hear raspiness in her voice and see tiredness in her movements. For some, it was simply a human moment. For others, it raised a much bigger question. After carrying the weight of the most talked-about tour in the world, is Taylor Swift starting to show signs of burnout? Yahoo! What made that moment feel so dramatic is the way the Eras Tour has been framed from the very beginning. This is not just another stadium tour. It has been treated like a cultural event, an economic engine, a pop phenomenon, and in some cities, almost a civic holiday. Reuters reported that the tour sold out stadiums, pumped millions of dollars into local economies, and became so influential that even the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia cited a Taylor Swift concert run as a driver of tourist spending. Billboard projections cited by Reuters also pointed to the Eras Tour surpassing previous records to become the highest-grossing tour in history. So when fans watch Taylor Swift on stage, they are not just watching a singer perform songs. They are watching the central force in one of the most commercially powerful entertainment stories of the decade. That level of visibility changes everything. A cough is no longer just a cough. A quiet moment is no longer just a pause for breath. Every sign of fatigue becomes amplified because the artist at the center of it all has been elevated into something almost mythic. The scale of the tour has made people expect consistency that borders on impossibility, which is exactly why a brief vocal wobble suddenly became international conversation. Reuters, to understand why fans reacted so strongly, you have to understand the physical reality of the show itself. The Eras Tour is not a relaxed set, and it is not designed around conservation of energy. BBC described the opening version of the concert as a 3-hour and 15-minute performance featuring 44 songs, structured around different albums and phases of her career. In Singapore, local coverage described the show as lasting around 3.5 hours. That means Swift is not simply walking out, singing a standard 90-minute set, and leaving. She is carrying a huge live production packed with costume changes, stage transitions, choreography, emotional pivots, and a set list designed to cover nearly every corner of a 2-decade career. It is a performance built to overwhelm both visually and emotionally. The audience expects spectacle, precision, and intimacy all at once. Every section has its own mood, look, and physical demand. She shifts from glittering pop star to wounded storyteller to folklore dreamscape narrator, all while maintaining vocal control in front of tens of thousands of people. The fact that she has been able to do that repeatedly is extraordinary. The concern in Singapore came from the realization that even someone operating at that level still has a body, still has limits, and still has nights when her throat may not cooperate with the expectations placed on her. BBC News' Time Out the Singapore leg added another layer of pressure because it was not just another stop on the calendar. It was a major regional event. NPR reported that Swift performed 6 sold-out shows in Singapore, drawing more than 300,000 fans from Singapore and neighboring countries. Those concerts carried wider significance because Singapore had secured them as her only stop in Southeast Asia, turning the run into a magnet for international travel and intense media attention. People flew in from across the region, spending heavily on tickets, flights, hotels, seals, and merchandise. That kind of environment creates a different temperature around the performance. The crowd is not just excited, it is emotionally and financially invested in a major life event. For many in the audience, attending the Eras Tour in Singapore was not casual entertainment. It was a pilgrimage. It was the reward for months of planning, saving, and anticipation. In that context, seeing Taylor cough through a song felt especially emotional because so many people had come from so far to witness this huge cultural moment, and at the center of it was an artist who suddenly looked vulnerable. The irony is that the same global frenzy proving her power may also be intensifying the strain on her. NPR, that is why the conversation quickly moved beyond one isolated clip and into a larger debate about exhaustion. Fans online started pointing out not only the sound of her voice, but what they saw as changes in her energy. Some commented that she seemed calmer, more reserved, less explosive in her movement. Others speculated that the weather shift, humidity, travel, and sheer physical fatigue might be catching up with her. And to be fair, that is not an unreasonable thought. Touring internationally is not just performing at night. It is constant travel, time zone changes, sleeping in unfamiliar environments, rehearsing, sound checking, costume maintenance, media obligations, and managing the emotional weight of a show that has become a global obsession. Even when a performer is officially off, the machine around the tour never truly stops. So when fans say she looks tired, they are responding not only to that one moment in Delicate, but to the broader reality of what it takes to sustain this level of output. At the same time, concern can easily slide into projection. Fans often speak as if they know exactly what is happening inside a star's body and mind, when in reality, they are interpreting fragments through emotion. A raspy line might indicate illness, overuse, dry air stress, or simply one rough patch in an otherwise strong night. The truth is usually less dramatic than the internet's first reaction, but the concern itself comes from a very real recognition that nobody can operate at maximum intensity forever without consequences. Yahoo! There is also something revealing in how quickly this became a story about cracks. That word says a lot about the image Swift has built during this tour. She has not just been successful, she has appeared relentlessly capable. She has seemed prepared, polished, emotionally present, and almost unnaturally durable. The Eras Tour has been sold as a celebration of every chapter of her career, but it has also unintentionally become a display of discipline. Fans do not just admire the songs, they admire the work ethic. They admire the repetition, the consistency, the way she can make each show feel personal even within a gigantic commercial enterprise. So the moment her voice gave way, it threatened the image of total command that had been built around her. But maybe that is why the moment resonated so deeply. It reminded people that extraordinary performance is still produced by a human being. In a strange way, the cough did not diminish her legend so much as humanize it. It showed that even an artist commanding one of the biggest tours ever assembled still has to fight through the same physical fragility that affects any live performer. That does not make the achievement smaller. If anything, it makes the scale of what she has already done feel even bigger. Reuters BBC News still. The burnout question lingers, because the demands of this tour are not theoretical. They are measurable. The set itself is massive. The production is elaborate. The emotional range is enormous. The travel schedule is relentless. And although she had a holiday break before returning to the road, resuming a show of this scale is not the same as casually returning to work after time off. It requires the body to ramp back up to elite performance levels almost immediately. That is especially difficult when the tour moves across continents with different climates and travel conditions. Singapore's heat and humidity can be punishing even for people who are not singing and performing under stadium lights. Add costume changes, long vocal passages, adrenaline spikes, and the expectation to deliver at the same standard every night, and it becomes very easy to see how the body can begin pushing back. Fans who suggested weather changes may have been guessing, but their broader instinct was understandable. A performance like this does not happen without physical cost. Every successful night likely requires recovery work the audience never sees. Hydration, sleep, vocal rest, physical therapy, rehearsal discipline, nutrition, and pacing become essential. A superstar may appear glamorous under the lights, but offstage the reality is often closer to that of a high-performance athlete. Yahoo! Timeout. And that comparison to an athlete is important because it helps explain why fans are so split between admiration and alarm. On one side are the people saying she needs to rest immediately. On the other are those marveling at her toughness and praising her for pushing through. Both reactions come from the same source: disbelief at the difficulty of what she is doing. When people say, "I don't know how she does these shows over and over," they are not exaggerating for effect. They are responding to a production that has rewritten audience expectations for what one pop performer can carry in a single night. In many ways, the Eras Tour has blurred the line between concert and endurance test. A singer is expected not only to sound good, but to narrate an entire career, embody multiple artistic identities, maintain emotional authenticity, and project joy and confidence to the very top row of a stadium. The body can train for that, but it cannot become invincible. So the Singapore moment did not just create concern because she coughed. It created concern because it reminded everyone that beneath all the glitter, planning, and precision, there is a body doing hard labor. And when a body under this kind of strain sends even a small signal, people notice. Yahoo! BBC News at the same time. It is worth resisting the instinct to turn one rough vocal moment into a diagnosis. Burnout is a serious condition, not a dramatic label to be casually applied every time a performer looks tired on stage. A raspy voice can come from dozens of causes, many of them temporary. Air travel dries the throat. Humidity affects breathing differently than cold air. A singer may have allergies, minor irritation, a short-lived cold, or just one difficult patch in a demanding show. The audience sees the symptom, not the context. That matters because the internet thrives on escalation. A clip goes viral, concern becomes panic, and panic becomes a full narrative about decline. But not every sign of strain signals collapse. In live performance, imperfection is part of the territory. Even top vocalists have off nights, missed notes, dry throats, and moments when the body refuses to cooperate. The difference is that most performers are not being watched by millions of people conditioned to interpret every twitch as major news. So while fans were right to care, it is also possible to overread the moment. Concern is compassionate, certainty is not. Without direct confirmation from Swift or her team, any sweeping conclusion about her physical condition remains speculation. Yahoo! What is undeniably true, though, is that the Eras Tour has created a version of fame that intensifies all scrutiny. Reuters described Swift as someone who in 2023 did not just dominate music, but also cinemas, local economies, voter registration conversations, and even sports culture through her highly visible relationship with Travis Kelce. That broader cultural saturation means every story around her becomes bigger than it would be for almost anyone else. When she stumbles, it becomes headline material. When she changes a lyric, it becomes analysis. When she appears emotional, it becomes collective interpretation. Her relationship with Kelce, her upcoming album release at the time, her international schedule, and the economic force surrounding the tour all combine to turn every appearance into a high-stakes event. That level of visibility can distort how we read normal human moments. A performer clearing her throat would not usually become evidence in a burnout narrative, but a performer who is also Time's Person of the Year and the face of a record-setting global tour does not get ordinary treatment. Fame at this level erases proportion. Reuters, there is also a deeper emotional dynamic at work in the fan response. Swift's audience often experiences her not just as an entertainer, but as someone whose music has accompanied their own lives in intimate ways. That relationship makes fans intensely protective. They do not only want a great show, they want her to be okay. When fans in Singapore wrote that they were scared or said she looked like she was fighting for her life, the wording may have been dramatic, but the underlying emotion was protective attachment. This is one of the reasons the Eras Tour hits differently from a normal pop spectacle. The concert is built around memory, identity, and emotional history. Every era corresponds to moments in fans' own lives, so when the person guiding them through that journey appears physically strained, the reaction becomes personal. That emotional closeness is part of Swift's power, but it also means ordinary performance fluctuations are interpreted through care and anxiety, not distance. The audience is not watching from a neutral position. They are watching someone they feel they know. That feeling can produce remarkable loyalty, but it can also fuel overreaction when reality interrupts the fantasy of endless stamina. Yahoo! Another reason the Singapore clip resonated is because it occurred during Delicate, a song that already carries emotional associations with fragility, uncertainty, and vulnerability. The symbolism almost wrote itself. Here was Taylor Swift singing a song literally titled Delicate, while appearing vocally fragile in real time. For fans and online commentators, that overlap between song and moment made the clip even more memorable. It turned what might otherwise have been a passing technical hiccup into something that felt narratively loaded. Pop culture audiences are deeply drawn to moments that seem symbolic, and this one seemed to embody the hidden cost of the Eras machine. The irony was too neat to ignore. But symbolism can also trick us into overstating what happened. A moment can be emotionally resonant without being evidence of a larger collapse. Live shows are full of unscripted interruptions. Some become famous because they fit a storyline people are already eager to believe. In this case, that storyline was simple. The biggest tour in the world must eventually leave a mark on the person carrying it. Whether or not that was truly the case in that exact moment, the audience was ready to see it that way. Yahoo! What should not be ignored is that taking the tour to Australia and Asia likely changed the overall rhythm and strain of the production. International legs bring different logistical complications than domestic runs. There are longer flights, sharper time shifts, different climates, new local regulations, and varying venue conditions. Even if the set remains largely the same, the energy around each stop can change. Singapore in particular carried additional regional and political attention because of the exclusivity of the shows in Southeast Asia. NPR reported that neighboring countries reacted strongly to the arrangement, precisely because mega events like this carry enormous economic and symbolic value. That means the Singapore run existed under a spotlight even beyond entertainment media. Swift was not just performing concerts. She was arriving as a global event whose presence had become geopolitically notable in the region. That kind of environment can intensify pressure, not necessarily because the artist consciously feels every headline, but because the entire machine around the performance grows more charged. NPR, and yet there is another way to read the same footage, not as proof of decline, but as proof of resilience. According to fan reactions highlighted in media coverage, many people came away impressed that she kept going and still delivered the show. That perspective matters too. Live performance has always involved pushing through discomfort. Great performers are often remembered not because every note was perfect, but because they maintained connection under pressure. A singer who coughs, regains control, and continues may not be revealing weakness so much as professionalism. That does not mean exhaustion should be romanticized. It should not. But it does mean the incident can be interpreted as evidence of discipline rather than collapse. One of the paradoxes of live music is that audiences often want total authenticity, yet they also expect flawless execution. Real authenticity includes moments of strain. It includes seeing a performer work through the unpredictable reality of the human body. If anything, the Singapore moment may have reminded fans that what they are witnessing is live, not programmed perfection. Yahoo! Part of the reason this tour invites burnout speculation is because it has become a symbol of non-stop achievement in every direction at once. During the broader Eras era, Swift was not only touring. Reuters noted that she was also dominating streaming, releasing re-recordings, generating enormous movie box office through the Eras Tour concert film, and sustaining a level of public fascination that crossed into football, academia, and politics. When one person occupies that much cultural space, the natural assumption is that there must be a hidden cost. People begin looking for the toll because the output seems too large to be consequence-free. In a sense, the Singapore cough became a focal point for wider cultural anxiety about overwork, perfectionism, and the pressures placed on women at the top of global industries. Society loves to celebrate exceptional women, but it also watches closely for signs that the pace may be unsustainable. There is admiration in that gaze, but there is also a hunger for evidence that the machine cannot run forever. So the reaction to Swift's voice was not just about health. It was also about what her pace symbolizes in a culture that both rewards and punishes relentless productivity. Reuters, it is also worth remembering that the touring break ahead at the time offered a counterpoint to the panic. Media coverage noted that after Singapore, Swift had a pause before resuming the tour in Europe, beginning in Paris on May 9. That matters because breaks are not trivial on a production of this scale. Recovery time can make a major difference, especially for a singer navigating vocal wear and travel fatigue. The existence of that upcoming pause suggested that the schedule, while grueling, was not entirely non-stop. Fans urging her to rest were responding emotionally, but the calendar itself already contained a breathing space. That does not mean concern was misplaced. It simply means the narrative of immediate collapse may have been overstated. Sometimes what fans interpret as a warning sign is exactly the kind of thing a scheduled break is designed to address. Yahoo! Still, a break on paper is not the same as true rest in practice. When an artist is operating at Swift's level, downtime often comes with its own demands. There are business decisions, album plans, rehearsals, brand obligations, travel, personal relationships, and the psychological decompression required after massive public performance. Rest is not simply the absence of concerts. Real rest means recovery of the voice, the body, and the nervous system. It means stepping out of the hyper-visibility loop that turns every appearance into content. Whether that is truly possible for someone as globally watched as Taylor Swift is another question entirely. Even when she is not on stage, the story around her keeps moving. That may be one reason fans are so quick to worry. They understand, at least intuitively, that celebrity on this scale can be exhausting even before you add 3.5-hour stadium shows to the equation. Reuters, what the Singapore clip ultimately exposed was a tension that has been present throughout the entire Eras phenomenon. On one hand, the tour is celebrated precisely because it feels impossible. It is huge, emotional, physically demanding, and historically successful. On the other hand, the more impossible it appears, the more people wonder what it is costing the artist at the center of it. Fans want the spectacle, but they also want reassurance that the person delivering it is protected from the spectacle's weight. That tension may never fully resolve. A tour becomes iconic because it pushes boundaries, yet pushing boundaries is exactly what raises fears about sustainability. Swift's cough during Delicate condensed that contradiction into a single viral moment. The grandeur of the Eras tour colliding with the simple reality of a strained human throat. Yahoo! BBC News, if there is a broader lesson here, it may be about how we talk about endurance. For too long, entertainment culture has praised performers for pushing through everything, as if ignoring physical warning signs is proof of greatness. There is certainly professionalism in showing up, but there is also wisdom in recognizing limits before the body forces the issue. Fans calling for rest are, in their own dramatic way, pushing back against the old mythology that the show must always go on no matter the cost. They are saying that a superstar is still a person, and that preserving the artist matters more than preserving the illusion of invincibility. Whether Swift was truly ill that night or simply having a rough vocal patch, the reaction revealed a fan culture increasingly aware of the pressure artists carry. That awareness is not a bad thing. If anything, it may be healthier than blindly demanding perfection. Yahoo! At the same time, there is a difference between caring for an artist and catastrophizing about them. The internet often struggles to hold that difference. A measured response would be to acknowledge the difficulty of the tour, recognize the visible strain in that specific moment, and also accept that one clip cannot tell the whole story. It is possible to say she looked tired without insisting she is at the edge of collapse. It is possible to admire her toughness without glorifying exhaustion. It is possible to care without turning concern into theater. That middle ground is usually where the truth lives, but it is rarely the version that spreads fastest online. Yahoo! And maybe that is why this moment felt so compelling. It broke the illusion just enough to remind people what live art really is. The Air Tourist Tour has often been discussed in terms of records, revenue, ticket demand, and cultural power. Those things are real, and Reuters and NPR both make clear just how enormous its impact has been, from local economies to regional tourism. But at its core, it is still a person standing in a stadium trying to carry a song to the back row. Strip away the headlines, the speculation, the economics, the fandom wars, and that is what remains. A voice, a crowd, a body under pressure, a performance unfolding in real time with no safety net for imperfection. When that voice catches, even briefly, the whole illusion of ease falls away. And perhaps that is not a sign that the magic is fading. Perhaps it is a reminder of how much work the magic has always required. Reuters, NPR, so is it all getting too much for Taylor Swift? The honest answer is that nobody outside her inner circle can say for certain. What can be said is that the concern did not come out of nowhere. It came from watching an artist carry one of the most ambitious tours ever mounted, across continents, climates, and expectations that would overwhelm almost anyone. It came from seeing a tiny breach in an image of total command. It came from fans who know the difference between polished performance and visible strain. But it is equally true that one moment of coughing does not erase everything else the tour has shown. Discipline, stamina, adaptability, and an ability to keep connecting with audiences on a monumental scale. The Singapore incident was real, but so is the larger record of resilience surrounding it. The fairest conclusion is not that Taylor Swift is definitely burning out, nor that fans are foolish to worry. It is that the moment revealed exactly how demanding this era has become, and exactly how invested the world is in the person carrying it. Yahoo! Reuters, in the end, the Singapore clip may be remembered less as a crisis and more as a correction. It corrected the fantasy that even the biggest star in the world can glide through a tour of this magnitude untouched. It corrected the idea that excellence must always look effortless. And it corrected the distance between icon and person, if only for a moment. Taylor Swift did not suddenly become fragile because she coughed during Delicate. She became visible as human. And in a culture obsessed with constant output, that visibility may be the most honest thing of all. Yahoo!